Total Screen proudly presents their official podcast, On Screen, with your hosts, Tyson Gifford and William Roerig. Hello, everybody, and welcome to On Screen, the official podcast of the Total Screen. My name is Tyson.
My name is Will.
And today we are going to be talking about the series finale of Hawkeye. We are also going to be discussing some news stories, a few, not too many, a few movies that I've watched recently, and a few things coming up in the next 2 weeks. Normally we do like a week and a half, but we're going like 2 weeks because we're taking next week off because of the holidays. Let's jump into our news segment, which is On Beat. On Beat is our regular news segment. We just talked about what's happened in the last week. Let's kick things off with Spider-Man No Way Home, which opened massive, both domestically and globally. As you were saying, Will, before we started recording, they don't have to do the post-pandemic asterisk on these numbers. You know?
Right, yeah. Like previously it was like they were saying biggest post-pandemic opening of movies, and it was like, ooh, with this, you don't need that qualification. This is genuinely the second largest opening in the domestic. By domestic, we mean United States box office of all time.
Yeah. This is second only to Endgame, Avengers Endgame. It's actually beat out Avengers Infinity War. So it's like a little Avengers sandwich.
It is.
Spider-Man in the center.
Yeah, it is. But again, like, I see Infinity War and Endgame as like one movie. They're two parts of one movie, so they were both like very equally hyped. It was like Infinity War and Endgame were the conclusion to a storyline that Marvel had been building up since they first started putting out MCU movies. So that makes sense. Also, Spider-Man makes sense. Spider-Man was already a massive franchise. And you take that and you take elements that people loved from the previous films.
I mean, by the logic of it's not as exact, but by saying Endgame was the culmination of like 10 years of work, you could say like retroactively fudging a bit and say that Spider-Man No Way Home is like the culmination of like, what, 19 years?
Yeah,
something?
It's kind of like bringing together all this history of the Spider-Man film franchise into one movie, right? And so I think that's what got people so hyped up, so excited about this movie. It's not just another Spider-Man movie. This one is something special.
It's an event. It's like a cultural event.
Yes.
I do have some numbers I want to go over just to kind of point out how impressive this is. So this is just for Spider-Man's only been open for the first weekend. So we're not talking about any numbers beyond that. This is only its first weekend. $260 million domestic. Endgame beat it out with $357 million. That's just massive.
Yeah, that's insane.
It's just, and that's just domestic. Like, whoa, geez, that's insane. But here's an even bigger number. 600 million global. This puts it behind both Endgame and Infinity War. Endgame made 1.2 billion globally in its first weekend. Infinity War did 640 million. So just barely ahead of Spider-Man for the global take. So here's some numbers. Here's some global numbers. To date numbers, meaning for the entire theatrical run for some other of the Marvel movies that have come out this year. Black Widow, and this is for the entirety of their run globally, not just domestically, but for the entire theatrical run. Black Widow, 379 million. Shang-Chi, 432 million. Eternals, 399 million. And though it's not MCU, Venom 2, 498 million. So all of those, the highest one of those is Venom 2, and that's under 500 million. And that's for the entire global run. In one weekend, Spider-Man did 600 million. So,
geez, that just eclipses.
Yeah, it eclipses by it beats by 100 million the entire run of Venom 2. So
it's so you know what Sony's thinking. Sony's thinking, well, Venom's doing good numbers. Spider-Man is knocking that out of the park. We got to get these two together as soon as possible because, like, then we'll really be eaten. Right? That's
we need to ruin Spider-Man with our really bad Venom energy.
Yeah, exactly. But you know that's where they're headed. That's the next logical idea. Is like, okay, we get these together and we got box office stew going.
So some other stuff to go over here. Spider-Man No Way Home is expected to be the first post-pandemic movie to hit $1 billion global. Nothing else is even close. It is the largest post-pandemic opening easily over Venom 2. Venom 2's post-pandemic opening, domestic opening, was 90.1 million, and Spider-Man 2 did 260 million.
Also, I'd say Venom, and people say Venom movies are not great movies, but they do so well. Venom movies do so well is because Venom's a Spider-Man. Venom's the most popular. Adjacent. It's Spider-Man adjacent, and Venom is, like him or not, the most popular Spider-Man villain. If you went around and asked a dozen people who their favorite villain from Spider-Man is, Venom's probably going to be the first name out of most people's mouths. Again, it's that brand power, that star power that propels those movies to those heights. I don't think, and I'm sorry to say this, Sony, I don't think Morbius is going to even come close to those numbers. Yeah. It's like nobody knows who that guy is. Like, nobody cares. There's one episode of the Spider-Man animated series.
The last number to go over is that this is, and it's obvious to figure out because it's the second biggest of all time opening, but this is the largest December opening of all time.
Yes.
So, I mean, pretty obvious since, only one movie beat it and it came out in summer. So obviously it's the biggest, not just December, but winter.
These types of movies, they usually come out during the summer. Like the last two Spider-Man movies were summer movies. There's a few
big blockbuster movies that come out at the end of the year.
Yeah, I guess
not too common. Harry Potter movies.
Yeah.
Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Those were all winter movies, Well, I think
that's
one
true.
or two of the Harry Potter movies were summer, but most of them are winter. But yeah, so there's a few big, winter, December kind of openings, but it's usually summer. Yeah. Especially for big tentpole, comic book movies and stuff, or big sci-fi movies. It's almost always summer.
Again, Spider-Man's only in the spot now is because everything got delayed by COVID, we had no Marvel movies in 2020, so
everything got pushed back.
Yeah.
But that's it for Spider-Man's huge numbers. I mean, this is just massive numbers,
Yeah.
And it's going to continue to do well. And this is all while, Omicron just has been exploding.
Yes.
And this is still going well. I saw somebody
Omicron is exploding
kind of hilariously that people are willing to risk their health for a big event.
I think there's a lot of pandemic fatigue. And I think there's a lot of people probably just taking this attitude that the media is hyping it up too much, and I really shouldn't let this stop me from enjoying my life and going to see Spider-Man. There's probably a lot of people with that attitude.
Yeah. Thankfully, I've been able to go to movies and stuff for a while now without too much risk, just because the theater by me happened. I think the most packed I've ever been in a theater since the pandemic has been 10 people besides me.
Right.
So it's so small enough that I can wear a mask and be relatively safe, sit pretty far away from everybody else. But yeah, it's pretty crazy. I mean, these numbers could have been even bigger if this was completely outside of the pandemic, if the pandemic had never happened.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Or maybe not. Maybe it did well because people were waiting for something like this to get out. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know.
Who knows? I'm certainly not a mind reader.
The next piece of news is somewhat related to Spider-Man, both because it's a Marvel-related story, but also because it's about a trailer that was literally the second post-credit scene, I should clarify, for Spider-Man.
Yeah, they're just doing movie trailers for post-credit scenes now, apparently.
They've done it once before. They did it on the first Captain America movie, the second
I don't even remember that.
it's still on there. If you watch Captain America on Disney Plus, the first one, and just fast forward to the very end after the credits, it'll show that teaser.
Actually,
it's like it's still considered part of that movie. The difference here is that post-credit scene, I don't think they ever released that outside of the movie. Like, it was only attached to the movie. They never put it out, because, I mean, YouTube was obviously around and stuff, but like they weren't putting everything up the way they do now. So I'm guessing that's probably why, if that is the case, which I believe it to be. But this time they waited a couple of days after the movie came out, and now they've just put it out on YouTube. The trailer, or teaser, I should say, for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. What did you think?
I think it looks great. I'm going to be honest and say, like, I saw the first Doctor Strange when that came out. I wasn't like a super huge fan of Doctor Strange. It was an entertaining movie, but at that point, it felt like it was a very by-the-numbers Marvel movie.
It was one of the last origin story style Marvel movies. Marvel's been kind of avoiding the whole origin story.
It really felt like it was like very by the numbers. And I felt like Mads Mikkelsen, as much as I love that actor, I felt like his character as the villain was probably one of the weakest villains.
He didn't really just have much to do.
Yeah, the villain wasn't exciting. Obviously, Benedict Cumberbatch really carried the movie. He has the charisma to really elevate the material. So, I was wondering, hearing all the things about this movie, but when I saw the trailer, I just thought, man, this is it. This looks like this is going to be a thrill ride. I love it. It looks like it potentially has a much better villain in Benedict Cumberbatch himself. I don't know. It looks like it's going to be fun. And it's a Sam Raimi movie. And I like Sam Raimi movies. I was
just about to point that out. It's Sam Raimi. Yeah. That's going to be a big part of it, Yeah,
that's going to be a big part of it. The man makes good movies. I don't think there is a single Sam Raimi movie I have watched that I have not enjoyed. Even Spider-Man 3, for all of its flaws. And yes, it is a heavily flawed movie.
I attribute a lot of that to studio interference.
He didn't want to put
Venom in the movie.
No, he didn't. Sam Raimi he's an old school Spider-Man guy. He read Spider-Man in the 60s and 70s. He didn't really read Spider-Man in the 80s. He was too busy making Evil Dead, to pay attention. So he didn't have an affinity for Venom or any of the characters introduced in that era, and he even said, looking back on it, he said he didn't like the character, and he knew just throwing characters on the screen that he had no love for wasn't going to produce a good product.
Mm-hmm.
And he knew that, but that's what the studio was pushing for, because Sony wanted to spin Venom off into his own film series, so they needed to shoehorn him into a Spider-Man film and then have that happen.
That was the first sign that Sony didn't really know what they were doing.
Yes.
With the Spider-Man property, and then that became painfully more obvious as time went on. But that was definitely with Spider-Man 2.
Even with all the flaws of Spider-Man 3, there's still a lot there to enjoy. It even the bad stuff is adorably goofy. Like all the memes of because you have right now, you have the Tobey Maguire memes.
The Bully Maguire.
Yes.
I love those YouTube videos where they've edited him to replace Thanos as the main villain in Endgame and stuff.
In Endgame and stuff. Yeah, all those edits. That meme comes from Spider-Man 3. Yeah. So, I mean,
James Franco, so good.
Yes, yeah. I think that's, So I don't 100% hate Spider-Man 3. It's weird that people take such a hardline stance or something because Spider-Man 3 turned out disappointing. Sam Raimi's no longer a good filmmaker or some shit.
Yeah, he's done just lots of good stuff, man. I mean, I'm a huge Sam Raimi fan. Besides the obvious ones, you have stuff like The Quick and the Dead, Darkman, A Simple Plan. Simple Plan is brilliant. If anybody hasn't seen A Simple Plan, watch A Simple Plan. It is an absolutely brilliant movie. He's done lots of good stuff. And then, going back to his kind of horror roots with
Drag to Hell?
Drag Me to Hell. That's it.
Yeah, Drag Me to Hell, yes.
Yeah. He does great stuff, and it's good to see him kind of involved again. He's been kind of not really that present for a while. He's had a lot of projects that fell through. He was originally tied to do a Warcraft movie a long time ago.
Yeah.
And that fell through.
That happened without him.
Well, they ended up doing a World of Warcraft movie instead of his was just going to be Warcraft.
Oh, well, what?
And they did World of Warcraft.
What the difference would be.
Yeah. I think a different era in the story, I think. And I don't know. But anyways, it ended up being this kind of really big international movie. It was big in China and stuff, but nobody really gave a shit excited about it here.
No.
You know, he just hasn't done too much recently, so it's exciting to see him in like a big movie again. You know, we're working on a big movie. But that's getting off topic.
Yeah, that's getting off topic. I'm just going to say, based on trailer, Multiverse of Madness looks fantastic. I can't wait to watch it.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like Marvel is really hitting its stride again, post-pandemic, post the year without Marvel. Coming back from their year-long hiatus, it looks like they're hitting their stride again.
2020, a year without Marvel.
Yes.
And then our last piece of news is that Michael Keaton will again be reprising his role as Batman / Bruce Wayne in the HBO Max Batgirl movie. I say HBO Max movie because this is literally like a movie, not a series, being made exclusively for HBO Max, not in theaters.
I think that kind of tells you Warner Brothers' confidence in the film. The fact that A, it's relegated as a TV movie for HBO Max, and B, they're casting Michael Keaton and they're doing that stunt casting. It really tells me that the studio executives do not feel they have a strong enough movie to do a full theatrical run, and they want to get some more attention and eyes on it. So they feel like, okay, well, if we put Michael Keaton in there, more people will watch it, I guess. It really, to me, I don't know, to me, it kind of screams they don't have a lot of confidence in this project. Maybe I'm wrong.
We'll have to see, because it could also be like a play for a new direction for, how they're going to do things, because there's a lot of new stuff that's been going on with streaming service. I mean, the MCU connected shows on Disney Plus, or the Peacemaker series coming to Max as well.
Yeah.
So there's kind of a move towards doing different things.
There's a move towards doing this, but
the Zack Snyder cut, the 4-hour Zack Snyder cut of Justice League that they did. So it could just be them trying something different.
But the Marvel stuff, that's on Disney Plus, and then their film stuff is clearly delineated, right? It's clearly okay, we got Hawkeye series. Do we feel like Clint Barton is enough to carry a film by himself? Are we going to do an entire MCU film around Clint Barton? Probably not. Let's do a TV series like that.
But for example, they did the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and then afterwards announced that they were doing a new Captain America movie with, the same character.
Well, that's a different case though, because that's a one-off, and that's meant more to be a bridge between the characters between the last Captain America movie, which starred, Steve Rogers, and the new Captain America movie that's obviously going to have a new Captain America. So that's built as a bridge between movies. So it's not really the same thing.
Still, in that sense, it was a new thing, and this could also be a new thing. It isn't necessarily relegating it off. It could just be a new thing. I mean, Michael Keaton's enough of a draw that they could have actually brought in some box office numbers just on Michael Keaton's involvement.
I was actually, because when I read the Michael Keaton article, and I read I was actually surprised, because I thought they were planning this as a theatrical release all along, and unless something changed and I didn't know. Now I'm thinking, wait, was that wrong? Was this always planned for HBO Max, or is that new?
HBO Max,
I don't know.
I think it was somewhere around when they announced all the same day release movies that were coming out, this year. It was around then. I think a little bit afterwards, they announced that they were going to be doing, I think they said 7 to 10 movies that they put into production that were HBO Max exclusives.
Yes, I remember reading that.
Yeah, so there was a good number of exclusive ones that, these weren't ones where it's oh, we don't have confidence in them, so we're gonna take it from a theatrical release and put it to that. These are movies that hadn't yet been greenlit until just then.
There's still the stigma. It used to be when a movie was put out, there were certain movies that were put out direct to video. Mm-hmm. And it was always understood that these were movies that were absolutely not fit to have a theatrical run. Scorpion King 3, starring whoever the fuck, Scorpion King 3 was not going to get a theatrical run. It was made very cheaply. Oh, Dave Bautista was in that. It was made very...
That was before he got his career.
Yeah, it was before he got as big as he... Yeah, as big as he is. That's when he was a lesser known UFC fighter,
WWE.
Was he? I thought he was UFC for some reason.
No, he was WWE.
Okay, never mind. But anyway...
Unless he crossed over, which I don't know. Some have.
But the main point is, direct to video implies lower budget, with mostly unknown talent, terrible scripts. You know, like it implies that. So like, and I think that stigma still carries over to streaming. So we have yet to see, you know, what it's going to be like. But I think like there's still the stigma of like direct to streaming. I know Netflix tries to put out more high caliber content on their platform, even if it doesn't always end up that way.
Yeah, I mean, they at least go like big name actors and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, they put out Red Notice, which was like The Rock, Ryan Reynolds, and Gal Gadot. Who were like three huge names, you know? By most measures, wasn't really a good movie.
It remains to be seen, like, if an old school Hollywood player like Warner Brothers, you know, if they're not going to treat HBO Max as a dumping ground for movies that they used to consider direct to DVD.
Let me give fuel for another way to look at that. There's been a lot of issues recently between movie theaters and studios.
Mm-hmm.
Movie theaters business has been sliding for a while. Besides, I mean, you keep getting bigger and bigger numbers on these huge movies like Endgame and stuff. But like most movie stuff has been a bit down, actually, comparatively. There's been a lot of fighting about how big of a release window a movie theater gets before the studios can take it elsewhere. Like, you know, I think with the pandemic, they pushed a lot of them down to like 45-day windows where they used to be, I think, 90-day windows. So there's all sorts of like stuff going on between these. They could be leveraging high quality content for streaming services that they own. So they don't have to sell them to these other streamers. They own them and using them for their own subscriber bases. They could be using that as leverage in negotiations with movie theaters.
That's
like,
another possibility.
We don't need you. Like, we can do this on our own without you. And that gives them leverage. So that could be a reason why you're seeing things not like just as a single movie, but think of it as like the bigger whole. Like Marvel making these MCU connected projects that are coming to Disney Plus, or Warner Brothers saying we're going to have like 7 to 10 like full budget feature films that are going to be released exclusively on HBO Max. Like that could very well be used for leverage.
It's possible.
That's it for our news segment. We're now going to move on to our next segment, which is On Tap. What we've been watching. What we've been playing. What's on tap? On Tap is where we talk about stuff we've been watching, but not in full spoilers. So it's a little bit different than our full spoiler segment.
So let's go on. So you've been in a Christmassy mood lately.
We've been trying to. We missed like 2 days, but at my household, we've been trying to watch a Christmas movie every day since like late November, since right around like Thanksgiving. And we said, we're just going to try to do a Christmas movie every day. It's really hard because a lot of movies are just not that available. You know, a lot of the ones that I want to put, and the ones that are readily available are like the Hallmark, you know, like white people wearing sweaters movies, you know, that I don't exactly want to watch. So a lot of the good ones haven't been, but there have been a few ones that I was able to find that I quite enjoyed. And then even some ones that were kind of surprises. So there's 2 movies in particular I want to bring up. One is an old movie that I absolutely loved. And I said we're doing these Christmas movie things, but part of doing it my way to make it more entertaining has been picking a few here and there that are like less traditional, like, you know, your Die Hards, your Gremlins, things like that. And one of the ones that was less traditional is there's an old movie in the 90s called The Long Kiss Goodnight. Have you ever seen this?
Yeah, I'd seen that. I saw it on videotape when it came out.
Yeah, like a long time ago, right?
long. It's been a long time.
It's not really readily available.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, I think I found it on like Tubi or one of those other like weird streaming services, like free streaming services. But yeah, The Long Kiss Goodnight is an old movie, and I remember loving it, like really absolutely adoring that movie.
I don't know, like if I adored. I thought it was a good movie. I thought it was entertaining.
Oh, it struck the right chords with me when it came out. Like it was the right time, the right movie at the right time for me, I guess. I really loved that movie, but I haven't seen it in like 20 years, you know, maybe more. So I was like, okay, I want to watch this. Ended up being able to watch it. And it was a kick going back and watching it because in many ways, it's still a great movie. It's still like highly entertaining and stuff. In other ways, man, there's some serious cheese in this movie.
Right.
And it's very 90s. Like there's a part, I remember like one part where They're like in a hallway, and one of the enemies that was chasing him like threw a grenade, and they looked at the grenade and had time to kind of figure out what they were going to do. It took like a minute before they decided to leave. It was just the grenade just sitting there on the ground.
Man, that is a bad grenade.
Yeah, and then they go running down the hallway to jump out the window, and it's like a fire tunnel shooting down the hallway. And I'm like, that's not how grenades work. Grenades don't create like a backdraft effect of fire. Like, it's just a concussive explosion. There isn't even that much fire when a grenade goes off. It's like shock explosion, you know?
Right, yeah.
But instead, no, like this goes up like a flamethrower shooting down the hallway behind him. There's like a little bit, like this is unfortunately a little bit sad, but there's some homophobia going on in it. I mean, this is a movie from the 90s.
Right, yes.
That's just part of that era. It's unfortunate, but it's there. There's nothing like super egregious, but there's just some comments of like, you know, a character saying like, I hide an extra gun by my crotch because men don't want to, you know, pat me down there or something. And then like later on that same character will like, somebody will say something that's like, why are you thinking about my crotch so much? Or it's like this weird, it's like a very weird, like phobia is the right term. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, not like, it's not so much gay hating as gay fearing. So there's a little bit of that in there. It's a little bit unfortunate, but it's the 90s. You know, you go back and watch the movies from the 90s, you're going to be surprised at some of the casual homophobia that's just pervasive throughout it, you know? I mean, Elliot calls his brother penis breath in E.T. That's like an example. It's there. But yeah, there's also some great lines. There's this line that's like, it's famous. Like I couldn't remember. I didn't know that it was from this movie again until like I saw it repeated. But Brian Cox is in this movie. He has a relatively small role, and he has a line where he's talking about the fact that this dog is like licking his asshole and his tongue's so lodged up in there that whatever's there is either gone for good or there to stay.
That's not an image I needed.
But it's like a famous line. Like, I think whatever's there is either gone for good or there to stay kind of thing. Right, yeah. You know? Is like a line of dialogue that I distinctly remember. It's one of those things that like you don't remember what it's from, but you're like, yeah, I remember that line. And I'm like, oh yeah, it's from this movie, you know? So it's like there's a few little cool reminders I was able to have with that. And the other thing is that, you know, Samuel L. Jackson is in this movie. He's great in it. And Gina Davis, man, we haven't seen her in a long time.
Oh, we have not,
we need more Gina Davis.
Right.
Because Gina Davis is fantastic in this. But yeah, I recommend it. If you haven't seen The Long Kiss Goodnight in a while, it's kind of fun to go back and check it out because there's some warts on it. But that's even kind of part of the fun, you know, watching an old movie that you haven't seen in a long time is seeing the things that you like are the warts on the movie that you're like, oh yeah, oh, I forgot about that, you know, or like, oh, I don't, you know, that wasn't a big deal then, or like that wasn't something that I picked up on before, but now I do kind of thing. So that was the one. The other Christmas movie I watched was like, you and I had a discussion, I think when we did our Advocates episode on Christmas movies, where we talked about the fact that there haven't really been a good Christmas movie in a long time.
Right.
You know, like it just seems like there are all these like Hallmark style Christmas movies, like I said, white people wearing sweaters movies that just aren't that great, you know, and that's kind of taken over. When people think about Christmas movies now, those are what people think of. So I was saying like a lot of the ones that they've tried to do, like, oh, this might be a bit more of a fun one, like say Christmas Chronicles on Netflix and stuff are just, they're not that great. They're just like kind of okay. They can be fun to watch, but they're not good movies, you know? Well, I saw one that's actually a good movie.
Okay.
And it's called A Boy Called Christmas. And what it does is it kind of like says like, let's do like a origin of Christmas kind of movie, like a fantastical origin of Christmas movie, but let's treat it the same way we would treat like a Harry Potter movie. Like, let's make it really fun. Let's make it really magical. Let's make it feel really authentic. And instead of just like, oh, it's like a movie for kids, so we don't give a fuck kind of mentality, like let's like actually do the work and make it good, you know?
Right, yeah.
And that's what this is. So like, if you like movies like the Harry Potter movies, like this is a Christmas movie that you're probably going to dig because it kind of has that like level of work put into it is kind of like the best way I can put it. Like that level of care. Like you can tell they actually give a shit about the movie, like the people who made it, you know? So yeah, that was actually like a surprise find. That's a Netflix original movie, so you can check that out there. But those are the Christmas movies that I was going to talk about. And then I have one more movie I want to talk about in our On Tap segment, and that is Spider-Man No Way Home. Obviously, I'm not going to go into spoilers here. Will has not seen this movie, so I do not want to spoil it for him. I only have like a few spoilers that I'm definitely going to say right now and get up there. be ready, Will. So my first spoiler is that
what are you doing? What are you doing?
Rosebud is his childhood sleigh. Vader is his father.
Wow. Yeah, I was going to watch those movies. Like,
Vader
what
is his father.
Oh my word! You just spoiled
and he
Star
sees
Wars.
Dead people.
Oh, what?
I'm sorry, I just had to get those spoilers out.
Wow! You just spoiled Citizen Kane, Star Wars, and Sixth Sense, and you thought that was like a funny joke. Like, no.
Some people haven't seen those movies.
Some people haven't. I haven't seen any of those movies.
God, the most recent of those movies is what, 20 years old now?
Yeah. I actually saw the Sixth Sense like at the drive-in. I remember my cousin like at the beginning of the movie. My cousin like, he'd never seen the movie either. The movie just came out. But he leaned over me and he just like said something like, "Yeah, Bruce Willis is a ghost."
I honestly, I picked up on that. There was a part towards the beginning where he was like yelling at his like fiance as she was like walking away and she was ignoring him. And that's when I picked up on it.
Right. Yeah.
I was like, oh, this is weird. The way they're doing this is weird that she's ignoring him. And I was like, oh, he's dead. That's why he's talking to that kid who sees dead people. Like I like clicked.
Right. That's why the only person he ever interacts with in the movie is that kid.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
That's when I caught it. Like I was like, ooh, it was a cool like reaction to like, notice that.
Right.
But back to Spider-Man. I'm not going to go into spoilers at all. I'm just going to kind of talk about my reactions. I still don't know 100% how I feel about this movie. I liked it, but I don't know how much I like it. Like I can't say like, oh, it's my favorite of the Spider-Man movies or not. And the one thing I'll say for why that is that it kind of feels less like a movie and more like, this is like exactly what basically Martin Scorsese said when he was criticizing Marvel movies. When he said that they're like, these comic book movies, they're not like movies, they're like roller coasters. And everyone's like, bullshit, like Endgame had emotional payoff, things like that and stuff like that. This literally does feel like kind of a roller coaster. And it's not like to its detriment. It's really cool, but it just kind of, it plays very differently from like other kind of MCU movies I've seen. And that's all I'm going to say about it because, there's lots of stuff in there, but I'm just saying I'm kind of not sure what I think about it as a movie right now because of that. But it was still like a great time and I enjoyed it thoroughly. So that is our On Tap segment. Our next segment is On the Horizon. On the Horizons, where we talk about stuff that's coming up in the next couple of weeks. We're going to be going over the next 2 weeks here because we're going to have a week off from our podcast. So on Monday, December 27th, Death to 2021 hits Netflix. This is Charlie Brooker's, creator of Black Mirror. He did this last year. We kind of talked about it briefly about the whole kind of concept of the Death to movies where it's like a satirical take on the last year and how things went.
Right.
So, yeah, that's coming out.
That should be a lot of fun.
December 27th, big cast. Lots of kind of well-known actors involved in that. So it should be a fun little way of saying goodbye to 2021, putting it in our rearview mirror where it belongs.
Yes.
Not quite as bad as 2020, but still a shit show. Yeah. Then we have the Book of Boba Fett, which is starting on Wednesday, December 29th. Like, 2 days before the end of the year, we got a new series coming out on Disney Plus. Are you excited for this? Like we both watched The Mandalorian and we saw the teaser for this.
Yeah, I'm interested in it. I'll watch it. I like The Mandalorian well enough. I think it's the Star Wars film stuff right now. I'm just kind of like, very like lukewarm on.
I stopped watching the movies. I'm like, I'm not even going to bother watching those anymore.
Right.
I stopped watching after the last one I watched, I think was the second of the new ones at Disney of the main series. Which one was that?
Star Wars is another one where I think they just don't really
know what they're doing. Yeah,
they don't know what they're doing with that franchise. They have no clue, no clear vision whatsoever.
Yeah. That's about how I feel. I'm just kind of, I'm done with the movies, but Mandalorian was pretty good. It wasn't like amazing or anything, but it was like, it did some really cool things and it was fun to watch,
Yeah, it was fun to watch. Yeah, exactly.
And there's some ones that I am looking forward to. I actually am really looking forward to the Ahsoka series,
Mm-hmm.
But the Book of Boba Fett looks okay. I'm a little skeptical on it.
Looks all right. I mean, we'll have to see how that comes out.
we'll have to see how it plays. I like that they're kind of they're kind of doing a little bit of the old Marvel trick of saying, like, instead of just making another Marvel movie, we're going to make, like, you know, a heist film, but it's a Marvel movie. Or we're going to make, you know, a 70s espionage story, but it's a Marvel movie. I kind of like that they're kind of taking that approach and going like, well, this Boba Fett show isn't just going to be like more Mandalorian. It's going to be like a kind of a gangster movie, you know?
Right, yeah.
So I kind of like that they're doing that. So it's like, it's a gangster movie, but it's in space, you know? I kind of like that idea of it. So that'll be worth checking out. Then on Friday, December 31st, on New Year's Eve, the last day of the year, Cobra Kai new season hits. I am looking forward to this.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this a lot. Cobra Kai is a lot of fun. This is looking like it's going to be the most fun season yet.
And they've been really hyping up this tournament, you know?
They've been hyping up this tournament. They brought back Terry Silver. Wasn't the best Karate Kid movie, but it was still an entertaining villain.
Yeah.
And I think it's entertaining now that we got
pretty much everybody back. All the really important
Johnny Lawrence finally teaming up with Daniel, you know, and we get to see them like trying to train their students together. And in like the trailer, they showed like small glimpses of like how their styles like clash. So we get to see like how that conflicts. And so it looks like it's going to be a lot of fun.
I also think the whole like the tournament structure, like in the first season, they did the tournament, but like it kind of jumped right into it. But now the second and third season have all been basically building to the next tournament. And now that the next tournament's happening, it feels like there's a lot more investment in what's going on in this one. So I'm kind of really excited about like how they're going to play this out. Like it's almost like when, you know, an anime series hits the inevitable tournament arc, you know?
Yeah, this is the tournament arc of Cobra Kai. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I'm excited. It looks really good. Next up, on Saturday, January 1st, on New Year's Day, Harry Potter 20th Anniversary Return to Hogwarts special airs on HBO Max. This is not like new Harry Potter. This is like the cast and crew getting together to talk about Harry Potter and, you know, look at sets and tell stories behind the scenes. They did the same kind of thing with Friends. If you're not like a huge Harry Potter nerd, this is probably going to be completely meaningless.
Yeah, this is completely meaningless. That is correct. Yes.
For me, as a huge Harry Potter fan, like I'm really looking forward to it. But if you're not like big into Harry Potter, this means absolutely nothing. Like I don't just mean like if you don't watch Harry Potter. I mean if you have to be like a big fan to be interested in this.
Not a fan.
Yeah. But you want the big I don't know. What would be your dream anniversary special in this vein?
Alf. Yeah.
Be like what? That'd be like the 40th anniversary by the time that was
Yeah.
The Alf
just have like Gordon Shumway or some shit. I don't know.
Yeah, you have to be a big Harry Potter fan to be interested in this. I am, so I'm looking forward to this on New Year's Day 2022 on HBO Max. And lastly, for our On the Horizon segment, Around the World in 80 Days is coming as a series to PBS. Now, normally I'm kind of like, who cares? Another version of Around the World in 80 Days. But this one stars David Tennant.
I actually watched the trailer for that, like last night. I saw it on YouTube, and it looks entertaining.
Yeah.
It looks fun. It's got David Tennant. David Tennant's great.
You had me at Tennant.
You had me at Tennant. He looks like great, like in the trailer. You know, I'm not a huge Jules Verne fan. I don't even think I've read Around the World in 8 Days or like watched any of the adaptations. But like, I
You're
think
probably pop culturally aware. You've seen it parodied in DuckTales or something.
I've seen a parody. Like I know I'm pop culturally aware. Like I'm aware of it.
Yeah.
But like, I saw it. So yeah, I'm on board with this. This looks fun.
Yeah. And that's Sunday, January 2nd. So that's it for our On the Horizon segment. And that brings us to our final segment of the show, which of course is full spoilers. In which we discuss the series finale of Hawkeye, which is episode 6, So This Is Christmas.
You know what? Gotta hand it to them. There was a lot of questions beforehand if they could do it, but I really thought they stuck the landing. This was a great episode.
I'm mixed. I thought it was a lot of fun. I thought this episode was really fun, thoroughly. I like that the dynamic between Hawkeye and Kate Bishop is now kind of more just like a fun relationship rather than the whole like, oh, you know, I'm involved with you for this part, but you shouldn't be involved with me. It's dangerous. Kind of like back and forth bullshit that they'd been doing for a long time.
Yeah, he finally accepts her as an equal, right? So
I'm really glad they went there with it. I'm really glad that they had fun with trick arrows and stuff like that in this episode.
Yeah, they got a lot of good trick arrows in this episode.
At the same time, there's
funny
things
bits
that kind of bother me a little bit. Like,
okay, what bothers you?
Well, Kingpin.
Tell me what's Kingpin. Okay, so what's wrong with Kingpin?
Of course, I like Vincent D'Onofrio's portrayal of Kingpin. Of course, I like the fight scene with him and just showing how strong he is and stuff.
Yes.
And the way he's just getting shot with an arrow and just like knocks it out like it just doesn't phase him.
Yeah, again, like they show him as a pretty formidable force, you know.
As a physical force, but like as like a big gangster, like he comes across almost cartoonish in this one.
I don't know. Like it didn't seem like anything like outlandish to me.
Like he didn't seem to me, he seemed threatening physically, but he did not seem threatening as like a mafioso, which is like the opposite, or, you know, I guess not the opposite. It was different in like the Netflix show where he was both.
I think it's different.
And he was scary because of his credibility as a mafia threat.
I'm gonna say like on the second part, like physically for your second part, for your complaint, Netflix shows gave him like an entire season for that to play out. This show gave him one episode. Yeah. I think that's the issue. I think that's the problem with that.
Well, he didn't seem very competent as a boss. Like it just kind of seemed like a generic baddie in that role. Like I'm not talking, obviously the physical stuff was great.
I don't know like what he's supposed to scheme within like an hour of episode though. Like
well,
again,
he'd have
the
something
runtime
better than what he had. I don't even necessarily mean like we have to see him scheming everything. It's just that like his forces seem like woefully inadequate. You know, like they just seem, which is like, and that's where I said I feel mixed about it. Cause like I like the tracksuit mafia in the show. I like that like they had this scene where Kate Bishop was talking to the one guy and he was saying like, he's like, oh, your advice really helps me or something. And then she's like, but why the gun? And he kind of like shrugs. And then, you know, it's like those kind of moments are really funny and really fun to watch and stuff. But like, that's somebody working for Kingpin. Like that just feels like he doesn't feel credible, you know, as a threat. Like that's where that's what I said.
I don't know, like you're expecting Kingpin's going to call up Bullseye and he's going to show up.
No, I just mean that like I enjoyed the fun, but the fun didn't match Kingpin.
Right.
Like maybe he shouldn't have been in this, you know, like kind of thing. Like I love the reveal of Kingpin in this, like, and the Grinch song that they played in the last episode. I love the moments we got with Kingpin, but at the same time, it feels like he was decredited.
So here's what's happening. And the real reason Kingpin's in this, there's all this stuff happening on the side that is a setup for the Echo series that Marvel announced, the spin-off series featuring Echo. Kingpin is involved as a setup to that, where I think he's going to play a much bigger role in Echo than what he did in Hawkeye. Probably more similar to the role he played in Daredevil.
So you're saying he's not dead?
He's not dead. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying, is he's not dead.
Yeah, I
had a gunshot like off camera. Of course he's not dead.
Yeah, I believe that too. My whole point, though, is just that it feels like they did a disservice to the character in this show. Like everything that was good about this episode was also a negative for his character in this episode. And I don't mean like for its effect on the episode, but I mean like for its effect on his character as a whole. Like, I don't know. It would be like if they did a anime series that took place in the same world as like Death Note.
I just don't know. They
made like Light Yagami like fall into some really easy trap or something.
Here's the thing.
Like, wait a minute.
Here's the thing. Because I get your complaints, but again, they kind of wrote themselves in this corner where they spent the whole season with these goons going after Hawkeye and stuff. And the implication is Kingpin's been behind it the whole time. So they can't go into the final season and say, oh, well, Kingpin's not going to send these goons he's been sending all season.
And see, that's the flaw.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's my complaint. I'm not saying that like it's exclusive to this episode. I'm saying that like everything that I love about this episode, being kind of the goofiness and stuff, is contrast to Kingpin.
And again, there's like it's complicated because like there's a lot like there's the connection with Echo. You know, Echo's part of this group. it's established that she has close ties to Kingpin. And so again, like I really think a lot of this is in service to another show that has not come out, that we don't know anything about, and that's probably why it still feels off.
What I'm trying to say though is it still hurts it regardless. It's like they basically had, I think, two real choices of how to portray this. One is that they could have made the Tracksuit Mafia more credible, and then Kingpin would have felt more legit. And they didn't do that, and that's good, because Kingpin is a relatively small part of the movie, and the show works better being fun, like it is in this episode, than it does being too serious. But at the same time, like the other solution, which is what they did, was that they took something that wasn't very credible, wasn't very serious, and then they said Kingpin is in charge of that. And that makes him look like weak and incompetent. And how are we going to take him seriously as a threat when he next shows up or something if we know that he just got goofed so easily in this? It feels off. You know what I mean? Like, but I'm not saying it's a whole negative. I'm saying it's like, I feel mixed. Like I like the episode unless I'm thinking about Kingpin. And then I start to get conflicted.
He didn't get goofed so easily.
He got goofed pretty easily.
No, he didn't. He still thought
his plans were taken out by two people who didn't even know he was involved until like a minute before.
That's kind of uncharitable. His plans were taken out by Kate Bishop and a full-fledged Avenger, a member of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah, but they didn't even they didn't have any prep time. Like it was just like I like that, for example, we found out what the watch was. It was, Hawkeye's wife's watch.
Yeah.
It turns out she was an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., all that stuff like that.
Well, that makes sense.
But why was Kingpin after that? Like, why?
I don't know. Yeah, they didn't explain that, did they? Like, they were after that watch. It's just a normal watch with, like, a S.H.I.E.L.D. insignia on it, like, apparently. So what makes that special to Kingpin? I don't know.
That's the thing with the show.
They say, like, the eBay value is incredible.
That's the thing with the show, though, is that, like, for everything that's really good about this show, there's something that's like a negative that's
I'm not
like
saying the show
related.
I'm not saying the show doesn't have flaws. No, the show had a lot of flaws.
Like another example would be
I thought Jack was too goofy.
And see, that's the thing, is like Jack when he came into the show, he was seen as this kind of like obvious threat where it was like, this has got to be a red herring.
Yeah.
I actually kind of liked him in this episode because he was goofy, because he was like this swashbuckling billionaire for some reason. And it was goofy and it was stupid, but it was entertaining.
Yeah, it was entertaining. I also like that they didn't try
his involvement before, I
also like they didn't try to like re-walk it back and like try to like imply that he still had some involvement or was in some way sinister himself still.
Yeah. Like it felt like the plot thread was kind of dropped or mishandled, but it was done in a way that was fun. So it's like it was good and bad at the same time. That's what I'm trying to say.
He didn't even care. Like the guy's so goofy, like he didn't even care that like his fiance double crossed him and got him sent to prison.
But it's kind of funny,
he acted like it was like no big deal.
But it's kind of funny because that actually makes his character more consistent.
Right, yeah.
Because we had kind of our reactions earlier in the series was that his character was really weird and was so obvious as like this villain that was hiding something. It's like, no, was always this weird, goofy guy.
Yeah, he's always this weird guy.
And so like he was never like sketchy. He was just weird. Like I actually really liked the scene where it was like, what was it supposed to be, his cousin or something that was like this little kid?
Oh yeah, the little kid that we saw him in the first episode talking to the older guy who ended up getting murdered.
Yeah.
When like he scolded him, he said, "That's no way to talk to your elders. You weren't brought up like that." Like, I like that kid. That kid is sassy as fuck.
But it was funny, like, Jack arguing with him. Like, that's like his intellectual equal is this little kid.
Yeah, it's this little kid, yeah.
That's the thing. This whole show has been very paradoxical.
Yeah.
Like, tonally paradoxical.
I love that kid only shows up in, like, the first episode and then again in the last episode.
Yeah.
Like, that's so funny. Yeah, because, like, the show is trying to, like, mix in comedy, drama, and humor all at once. You know, it's not supposed to be like,
I think
it's
the
not
problem
trying to
is
take itself too seriously.
But I think the reason why it's clashing is the comedy that it's trying to do is like really kind of stupid, funny, you know, like ridiculous comedy.
Yes.
And that doesn't, like, you can do comedy and drama, but you have to do like a comedy that has like a level of realism to it in order to make it match the drama.
I felt
and
like
that's not what's happening here.
Jack was completely out of place in the series.
Yeah. But that kind of, in a way, that was one of the benefits, I thought, because it made him look so suspicious.
Yeah.
But it's like the whole reason it made him look suspicious is because he's this weirdo.
Yeah.
So he never like betrayed his character. He just was always weird, and we just didn't understand that, you know?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
We saw him being weird and said, oh, what's he's hiding? And he wasn't hiding anything. He's just weird.
Yeah.
So he was like the one kind of like super genuine character in the show that was like truly conveyed. I mean, that's what this whole show's been. It's like they introduce weird things like LARPing, but then they like don't nail the tone by making, you know, Clint like's reaction to it doesn't match up correctly, you know? And, like,
right, yeah.
It's like that's what this whole show has been like. So it's not that the episode isn't good or wasn't fun or that I didn't enjoy it. All those things were the case. I enjoyed it completely. But like the more you think about it, the more it just falls apart. And it's not about logic, it's about like tone. Like this doesn't tonally match that. Like these things don't fit. Like it just doesn't work, you know? But like if you don't think about it, if you just kind of take it as an experience, it's a fun watch.
Yeah, it's fun.
That's kind of been my reaction to it.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun with Hawkeye. I enjoyed the series overall. Like you said, it has its flaws. I don't think the flaws were great enough to bring it down or anything or to spoil my enjoyment.
I'd still say it's probably the worst of the live action MCU Netflix shows.
I'm not going to go that far.
Well, I mean, that's not even necessarily a bad thing because they were all good.
Yeah, they're all good. They're all good.
Yeah, I'm saying it's the worst of the, like, you know, the worst of four really good shows.
I'm going to say something probably controversial. I'm going to say I enjoyed Hawkeye more than Loki.
Really? I'm surprised. I enjoyed Loki more.
I enjoyed Loki, but I do think, like, I don't know.
So what's your ranking of the four? Like, not counting What If, just the four
the live action, probably.
Because, I mean, if we rank What If, that's probably the worst, right?
Number one's probably going to be WandaVision right now. Number two, Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
So it would be Loki for me there.
And like I said, I just said like number three would be Hawkeye, number four, Loki.
Yeah. So yeah,
I really felt like Loki could have been more fun. It could have really leaned into Loki's mischievous nature more. And it didn't. And I was like, I don't know.
Yeah, I liked Loki more than Hawkeye. I think Hawkeye is closest to, in my ranking, it's last of the four, but it's like maybe just on the tails of Falcon and Winter Soldier for me. But yeah, so when I say something like, it's the worst of the four, that's not necessarily like a bad thing. I mean, if I was to say like, this is the worst episode of Lost, you know, it's like, it's still an episode of Lost, you know? It's still an episode of my favorite show.
If he said What If was better, then that would
No. What If's the worst?
That would, yeah.
That's why I clarified live action. Of the live action MCU shows. And again, like last week, you jokingly said that I said that Hawkeye was worse than Inhumans.
Yes.
When I said it, because I said the same thing before, that this might be the worst of the MCU live action shows. And yeah, I'm not counting any of the other Marvel shows. I'm only
Inhumans,
counting the stuff that was Disney Plus exclusive.
And probably not fair because I never watched it, but I can still be confident saying never watching it. Inhumans is the worst Marvel TV show ever made.
Maybe.
Because
the same person that ran that show ran another show that could also be considered
Iron Fist.
Yeah, first season of Iron Fist.
Yeah, but it redeemed itself in season 2 somewhat.
Yeah, but it wasn't the same showrunner.
No, it wasn't. But I mean, you can't separate them. So you can't separate the seasons of the show.
I can. I do it with Dexter all the time.
just let Inhumans be the worst. Why you got just let it be the worst.
I think it's like, yeah, it probably actually is the worst of the two anyways. I did watch it, so I'm a glutton for punishment.
It's the one thing, like,
complete, so I watched it.
Well, speaking of Inhumans, do you think those characters will ever come back? Do you think Kevin Feige? I think Kevin Feige hates that fucking concept, like, franchise. I don't think that will ever happen as long as he's running Marvel Studios.
I don't know. I think eventually at some point he might have.
Because, like, that was supposed to be like a big tentpole Marvel film that got demoted into a shitty TV show.
Yeah.
Like, and I know, like, that's all Kevin Feige. Like, he had that, and we know, like, the whole push for Inhumans was like Pro Mars, so we know Kevin Feige, like, did not have, like, any love for that. Like,
but I think that was why Kevin Feige didn't like it. Not that he doesn't like Inhumans in general.
Right, yeah.
But that it was Ike Perlmutter's vision or whatever of Inhumans, and the way he was forcing that into existence that's what was the offending element for Kevin Feige.
Right,
Not the concept in itself so much as, like, you know, how it was being handled by Perlmutter.
Right, true.
So I could see it coming. You want to know why I don't think it's going to come for at least quite a while, though? Is because they acquired Fox and now they have X-Men.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, because initially it was supposed to be like their replacement for the X-Men.
Yeah, so I don't think they're particularly.
And I think the fan base. Right, I think the fan base wants to see an X-Men movie way before they see an Inhumans movie. Yeah,
X-Men, I mean, they're not. Marvel's not particularly starved for characters right now. Like,
no, they're not.
They were starting to get a little starved before, but now they have Fantastic Four and X-Men.
Yeah, they have access to all their properties again. They still got a deal with Sony going.
Yeah, except for some of the Sony characters that Sony wants to keep for themselves.
Right. But they're trying to work with Sony to incorporate those characters. But
yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, we went off topic, but
a little bit, but I think that just means we said everything we could say about Hawkeye. I think that's what that means. Yeah, I mean, in the end, that's the best way I can put it, is that I think the show is very tonally paradoxical. Okay, I think that's fair. And I think you brought up a lot of good points, even if I disagree with some of your assessment. I think overall your assessment is solid.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's Hawkeye. That's the end of our full spoiler segment. As I've mentioned several times already, we are not going to be having a podcast next week because it's the holidays and we need some time with our families and ourselves and a little break before we come back. But we are going to be coming back in 2 weeks. And we're going to be doing the best of 2021. So we're hard at work on that. That's actually going to be a kind of a pain in the ass.
It's a pain in the ass to do that. But we do it every year.
Yeah. It's a pain in the ass to do it, but once we do it and start discussing it, it's kind of fun. So
yeah, exactly.
It's worth it. It's worth the squeeze. But yeah, so that's what we're going to be doing in 2 weeks when we come back. And then that's going to be a new year. So new year, new shows, new content, new stuff to talk about.
Yeah. So yeah, Merry Christmas, happy holidays, whatever holiday you happen to celebrate. And, Happy New Year. See you in the new year.
Yeah. And then as usual, you can follow us on Twitter at Tyson Gifford, at Voxel Hero. You can check out our website, thetotalscreen.com. You can follow us on YouTube. The links for all that are on the website. Yeah, just leave a comment, good, bad, or indifferent. Check in with us. Tell us what you think. Leave comments that you want to address. If you want us to say something on an episode, leave that there. If you want to talk about anything we've discussed, if there's things you do or don't like about the podcast that you want us to kind of take to heart, put those in a comment and just send it to us. But until next time, thank you everybody for listening. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you for listening to the OnScreen podcast, the official podcast of The Total Screen. Visit our website at thetotalscreen.com. This podcast can be found on any major podcast client, including Pocket Cast and Apple Podcast. The entire backlog of this podcast and other content can be found on our YouTube channel.